All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Tim and Tim Show. Tim Vest, how you doing today, man?
Not bad. Can't complain. Another week, ready to make some moves. See what I
Yeah,
did there.
that's right. I like that. You got the mood lighting all set in the back, and the TV, and the glow, and the shirt. You all
Yeah,
swagged out, as they say.
yeah. I'm
You
starting to get requests for these things.
are
Uh,
you?
yeah,
I know a
and
guy that makes them.
I know a contractor that asked me for one. Um,
Oh man. All right. Um so this week I thought it was relevant to talk about the Fed meeting. They met on April 30th and May 1st, which was last Tuesday and Wednesday.
yep.
Purely, guys, I think we're just going to sit here and speculate a little bit about what the future of the market looks like. With with the Fed pausing rates again, it has brought up a lot of concerns. And I like to watch videos on YouTube by Graham Stephen or Stephan. Is it Steph? I can never remember now because Graham Stephen, I think it is. But he puts together really, really, really good videos of factual information. That's not, I don't think it's biased either one way or the other. But he puts a lot of time and effort into them, and it's clear and apparent. He knows what he's talking about. But I think the major concern that most people are having now with the Fed not moving rates yet again is that they think rates could go up. And I don't disagree with that because speculators mount up. Welcome to the party, Dennis. Um, I think I agree with that because what's happening is the inflation numbers are rising again. And the number one driver of inflation going up is real estate. Like, because real estate is such a bit, like, on a weighted average, real estate is the heaviest weighted average in the inflation calculations, to my understanding. And because we're still in this very high interest rate environment, there is not a lot of supply because people are not moving. They're not moving. They're not leaving their current properties. They're not leaving their current mortgages to go to a new house because they simply can't replace the mortgage with that same price point.
Yeah.
So there's an artificially low supply because nobody's moving, right? Only people that have to move are moving. And normally you'd see a lot more inventory on the market because people would be upgrading or moving to different locations or changing school zones and stuff like that. But a lot more people are just sitting put because the interest rate is so much higher than what it was when they refinanced or originally bought their house like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that, Tim?
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. I literally had a conversation about that this weekend on Saturday with someone because they were like, "What's up, man? Like, why is the market the way it is?" And we started talking about all these different factors, inventory, supply, no new builds, things like that. But you're talking about one of the biggest things, right? That the interest rates are doing is they're keeping prices elevated, and partly because of what you're talking about, and then the other piece too is there's been this natural transition as we age that is literally on hold right now. Like, baby boomers are wanting to downsize, but they can't afford to downsize, or it doesn't make financial sense for them to downsize.
I
They're
didn't even
literally going
think
to go,
about that point.
yeah, they're literally going to go buy a smaller home for maybe even less money, but their monthly mortgage is going to go up, right?
Mhm.
Like, they're in that boat, and so they're just like, I got this 2.8% interest, loan on my property, and my interest rate or my mortgage is $1,500 a month. Why does it make sense for me to downsize and pay 3,000 a month, right? Like,
Right.
so they're staying put, which doesn't free up inventory for, that family that's looking for a bigger house for more space, things like that. So, there's so many things at play where these interest rates are just like keeping people on the sidelines. Um,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah,
can't
and the housing market's not dead. I mean, my wife and I
no,
looked at a house over the weekend, and it was literally on the market for 24 hours and
yeah,
gone. In the market, I mean, at least in Wilmington, North Carolina, the market is still very, very, very hot, despite what interest rates are doing. And it just kind of solidifies the fact for me that everything that these people are talking about on YouTube and the news documents and things like that I peruse every time, every now and then, is that there's no supply. And the
No,
good supply flies off the shelf. There's still a very competitive market. I think this house went over asking price, potentially all cash. I have no idea. We'll find out when it closes here in a couple of weeks. But it's proof to show that just there's no inventory because people
no,
are moving and there's people not building. There's less starts. I mean, that's true in the construction space as well. We've had some softening. That was kind of a topic we talked about a couple weeks ago. Was Charlotte, for example, was a great example of that, where there was so much construction that started in 2020 and 2021, and those 2-3 year projects are coming to completion now. That the oversupply was causing softening in the market, in the rental market. But because there were no new starts following those starts, because the rise of the rising rates and the increase in materials and labor and all that stuff, now we're gonna, in 2-3 years time, we're gonna see it again where rents start to harden again instead of soften because there isn't new inventory, right? There's no new inventory coming online, and what hasn't changed is demand. Demand
right.
continues to keep growing, at least in the markets that we buy in and where we live. People keep moving to these areas, and if the supply dips and supply goes up and down but the demand stays constant, the only thing that's going to give there is the pricing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why people keep saying like, I can't believe you're buying. I can't believe you're buying. And I'm like, why wouldn't I? Like, the one thing I can't replace is, the inventory. It's there, right? I'm going to buy the inventory when I can get it. And then obviously location. But then the other thing too is like, hey, listen, if it works today, it's only going to work better when rates do drop. And at the end, and kind of like Tim, like we've talked about with a couple of other things, like this is a little different than distressed deals where you got people, all this money sitting around waiting for distressed deals like you're talking about. There's all this money sitting around waiting for interest rates to drop. So
Oh yeah.
when they do drop and people enter the market, that have been sitting around waiting, it's just going to drive prices up. I mean,
Yeah. I had an aha moment last night. We were underwriting a deal, and the insurance rates have quadrupled, tripled,
yeah,
quadrupled
yeah,
in this region. And when we did the tax calculation, applying the millage rate and the percentages and all that kind of stuff, the tax number went down. And I was like, Tim, how could that even be possible? And I had a aha moment. I was like, wait a second, that's totally possible. Property values have been crushed recently by the increase in the insurance costs, as well as the increase in the interest rates. So
right.
therefore, you're buying property significantly less than what the previous guy bought it. They're probably selling it at a loss. And therefore, when you apply those ratios and those millage rates and all that kind of stuff, your taxes could go down because the
Right.
property value's gone down. But if you ask me, I think it's artificially gone down because what's happening in the insurance and the interest rates, I believe, will be temporary. I don't think it's going to last forever. Like, I don't think that these rates and these insurance costs are our new standards. Now, they will. I'm hopeful that they will go down. I don't know how much they will go down, but ultimately, when they do go down, that increases the value of the property, which I've already bought at a reduced price. So I thought it was interesting. I mean, I have these aha moments kind of every now and then as we're working through different deals and scenarios and things like that. So I thought I'd share that.
Yeah, no, really good point, Tim. Tim and I were actually talking about this last night, guys. Like we're texting each other at 9 o'clock at night about it. And
Something like that.
yeah, and you know, it that's just how things work, right? And hopefully, we actually saw it a little bit when we were going through when we were appealing some of our taxes. One of the things we pointed out was like, hey, my insurance was here and it went to here. And the assessors typically acknowledge that. They were typically like, "Oh yeah, you're right. You lost an extra $36,000 a year in income on this property, so we need to factor that in, right?"
Hmm.
Um, and most of them did. We had one that was real bullish, but that's how it goes. Um,
Pick
but
of the
at the end of
litter.
the yeah, but at the end of the day, like you're talking about, like if you go ahead and secure that property today, you're just avoiding this mad rush that's going to happen at some point. And I can't tell you when that's going to happen. That's when we're going to get into our speculation portion of the show.
Oh,
um
Dennis, mount up,
yeah,
speculators.
but that's at the end of the day, that's what it is, right? It's all speculation. Like, what are rates going to do? I don't know, I can speculate. What are insurance rates going to do? I don't know, I can speculate. When are all these buyers sitting on the sidelines with cash going to come in and start buying? I don't know, but we can speculate. So let's speculate.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
mean,
think?
hey, full disclosure, this, last fall, I was pretty confident that we were going to have at least one rate reduction,
Yeah.
one by June. I was like, we're going to have one by June. Here we are, May 7th, no rate reduction, no big deal. It is what it is, right? I mean, it's purely speculation at the end of the day. Now, I am going to speculate again, and I know that the inflation rates are going up, but I truthfully believe that before the election in November, we will see some favorable changes in these pain points because people are going to want to use them as campaigning? Yeah, campaigning points or talking points or things like, look what I've started to do, or anything like that, in order to hopefully drum up some votes or something. How do you feel about that?
No, I think they will. But again, I'm speculating. I don't know. Like I can't even. Politics has gone a way that I never would have predicted, and I can't.
Mm.
Just like the stock market, I can't understand the fundamentals behind it either anymore. So I don't know
Yeah.
what they're going to do. I do know what they're going to do. They're going to sit there and argue about the right thing to do.
Yep.
So
Yep.
I'm pretty confident in that one. But other than that, where they land, I don't know. But one thing I will say is, I had a discussion with an investor last week, and they were challenging me on something. Tim and I refied a property, and they were like, "I can't believe you didn't factor this in." And one of the things that I was being challenged on was the interest rate. Right? They were like, "Where did you land?" And I'm like 6.7 something percent, whatever. And they're like, "You didn't, but why? Why didn't you factor that in?" I'm like, we did factor in, an increase over where we were. I think we figured it'd be like 6.25 or something, whatever it was. We did the whole rule of thumb, factoring in your what, 10 basis points a year or whatever.
Hmm.
And here we were. And we were like half a percent off.
Not bad.
Yeah.
At least we
Yeah,
didn't compress it.
yeah, well, and that was exactly what I said. I said, when at a time when everybody was thinking they were going to continue to drop, we at least did factor in an increase. And even when we bought this thing with rates at like 4.5%, we figured we'd be in the sixes. And we were in the sixes. Look at us.
Yeah.
But at least we didn't think we were going to be at 3.5.
Right.
Um, so but again, I'm like, who knows? I mean, you can follow rules of thumb, but at the end of the day, the reality may not match, right? And what we've seen over the last couple of years has been an unprecedented rise in rates. And now I think we're seeing, an unprecedented who knows what the hell, right? I mean, because like Vitaly said, if you would have asked me in November and December and people did, and I'm wrong, they
Hmm.
I
I'm
would
sure
have
we can bring up the recordings of this show that we did back then.
Yeah, I would have stood on a soapbox and been like, "They are going down, folks. We're dropping. We've
Yeah.
seen the peak and we're coming down." Hey, I
Nope.
was wrong.
I was wrong.
I
Yeah.
was wrong.
But, to our credit, um, everyone was kind of in that boat. Even a lot of loan brokers we work with were in that boat, and they were like, Tim, you guys should take this floating rate.
Floating rate.
You
Yeah,
should take this floating rate bridge loan. Everybody thinks the rate's going to go down. The probability that it goes down is really high. If you were a betting man, you'd do this. And I was like, cool. I'm not a betting man. I've been to Vegas and I didn't spend $1 on anything there. So I'll take the fixed rate because I can calculate exactly what my costs are. And if it was worse, oh well. If it was better, oh well. At least I knew what my costs were and I was properly budgeted for what I had in hand.
yeah. And guys, I am sometimes a betting man with my own cash, but not with yours. So
Good point.
I won't, if I'm using investor dollars, I'm not taking that floating rate.
No, not at
I'm
all.
just not. Um, we've taken a floating rate on one
One
thing,
deal. Yeah.
and it was a very short window, and it was as stressful as it could possibly be.
Yep.
And no, we did what we said we were going to do. We got it refied, we got it stabilized and everything within that window. But man, it was stressful,
Oh, yeah,
extremely
and
stressful.
it was when the rates were going up like 75 bips at
Yeah,
a chunk, and it was just like, "Oh my god," like,
yeah.
the interest rate is going up faster than the income of this property is. And
We-
we had all resources, all hands on deck were on that property trying to renovate it, and get it occupied and all that
Yeah.
stuff and get the income in. 'Cause we're like, we're gonna go down here if we
Yeah.
don't, move quickly.
It's like, great, we signed 11 new leases this month. We added 10 grand to the income. It's like, oh yeah, the interest rate just ate that up.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's still not out of the, we were like, yeah, we'll be out of the woods next week, and then you get another 75 bips, and I was like, okay, maybe next month we'll get ahead of it. But we did eventually get ahead of it, which was great, because it started to slow down to like 50% or 50 bips and 25 bips. But man, that
Yeah.
summer was one of the most stressful summers that I ever had.
But
Actually,
to Tim,
Q3, Q4, and Q1, because we ended up refinancing it in Q1. But my
yeah,
goodness, that was whew.
but
I
but to
think my hairline
Vitaly's
is receding a little bit faster because of that.
yeah, but to Vitaly's point, man, I'm like, when interest rates were low, I literally had conversations with people where they were like, I think we're going to see negative interest, like,
Oh, I remember those conversations. I was like, they're
yeah,
not gonna give you money to borrow money. Like, that
yeah,
doesn't make them money.
yeah. They were like, I think we're going to see negative interest rates. I was like, you really? Like, you're for real right now? You're not just messing with me? Like, and then like Vitaly's talking about, here we are in November, December, even January this year, and they're like, just take this floating rate. It's gonna, in this environment, I would take floating rate. And I'm like, well, not
Cool.
me.
Go ahead.
You do
Have
that.
fun.
Um, I'll deal with the 0.5% more interest and just know what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
What is that saying? A bird in the hand is worth more than two in the bush. And fixed rate debt is that for us for sure.
yeah, yeah. So I completely agree with you, man. Because I at least like to know what I'm dealing with and what my target is. I hate it when it fluctuates.
Mhm.
Um,
Talk about a moving goalpost.
yeah. So, well, guys, what else, man? I mean, I don't know, Tim. Like, what do you think is going to happen later this year as we get closer to the election? If somebody were to put you on the line right now and be like, you have to choose up or down, what do you think?
Down. I think down, right? Because I said it earlier, right? I think that it's going to be a campaign piece, in order to, in okay, it's either going to be a campaign piece for I've did this and look what I'm starting to do. I'm going to help you vote for me to stay in office so that I can continue this, or it's going to be a slogan piece of the other side saying I'm going to be more aggressive with this. I'm going to take these rates down, vote for me, and it'll happen, right? So it's like everyone's going to be because that's what everybody wants, right? I mean, that's what investors want. That's what homeowners want. I mean, sorry, home buyers want. Um, Everybody wants those to go down. So like I feel like it's an easy pawn to pick on if you could just say, hey, like I'm gonna vote for me and then I'm gonna make sure that I do this.
Yeah, um I'm kind of in the same boat. Like, I'm gonna do the rain dance here, folks. I'm just gonna keep dancing till it rains. So I'm gonna say down as well. And
But we've also been
primarily,
speculating down since the end of last year. I mean,
I
I think it's
keep
been what
saying it, it will be true.
Yeah. I predicted the future months ago, guys. See, I told you the rates were gonna go down.
Yeah, but you know, exactly. Like, I told you. But like, I feel September we'll see a
Dennis
decrease.
says September we'll see a decrease due to campaigning. I completely agree with you on that. I feel
So
like
here's
that's an easy shoot in.
and guys, shame on me for not knowing this. If somebody knows this, feel free to reach out and tell us. But so I'm always kind of curious of like how much of the inflationary rate is made up by the inflation in housing, right? The fact that housing won't come down, right? Um, so I kind of look at that and I go, is it perpetuating on itself? Like, are we stuck here because the rates are where they are and housing stays here and prices just continue to go up? Is that part of it? Are we
Well,
not going to see?
yeah, I mean, housing does,
Right.
make up such a big part of it, but it's interesting because if rates drop, buying activity is going to go up, and then demand goes up even higher than it is, right? Um, so it, man, it's like if rates go down, the housing numbers are going to like the buying is going to go up, therefore inflation is going to go up, right? Because
Right.
it's such a big driving factor. If inflation continues to go up, it will make if the rates continue to go up, inflation eventually will go down because that's, the lever that the Fed is pulling. And then it's hard to say what's going to go on in housing. Like, where is the tipping point for housing to start to go down? And there might not be one because people are locked in with 30-year fixed rates. I mean, it doesn't matter.
There's your softball. So here's the softball, guys, because what I've been wondering is like, at what point do we look at doing something a little bit different, right? Like,
Like
you know,
40-year mortgages.
or portable mortgages.
Portable? Oh,
Mortgage.
like you can move your equity onto a new asset?
Yeah. So,
Mm.
and that's not an unheard of thing. There are countries in this world that do this. Like, so essentially, and I don't, guys, I'm very junior to this, so I don't know exactly how it works, but think of it like this. Let's say you have a $300,000 mortgage on your house at 3%, and you sell your house, and you would be able to move $300,000 at 3% to the next house you buy. Right. So you would be able to take that mortgage and literally take it to your next house. And let's say you buy a $600,000 house. Well, 300,000 of your 600 would be at 3%, and you could take that. So that would, I think that is something that could help, right? Like some sort of.
No, what if you don't have that $300,000 to bridge the gap? Could you get like a second lien loan that obviously is going to have a significantly higher rate?
Right. Well, and that's the piece of it, right? Is like
Mm.
only 300,000 is at 3%. Then obviously you still got to have your 20% equity and whatever that difference is.
Yeah, because if you look at it like from a lender's perspective in a second, they could charge you 12, 15%, and then your average ends up going to 6 or 7% anyways. Then it would just be more beneficial for you to refinance and get or get a new loan, right? At a new rate
Well,
with better leverage.
yeah, and I think the thought process there is that the whatever that gap is bridged with is done at reasonable rates, done at like market rates. Not it's we're not talking about like bridge lending
But on a risk
or
perspective, the second lien holder is always set more risky. So yeah, I'd
yeah, but
argue that you could never have.
that's not how portable mortgages work. Like the way
Oh,
they would work is like essentially for example, your same lender is like, okay, we're keeping your 300 at 3%. Now we're going to add, we're
oh,
going
it
to add
would be
another.
with the same lender.
Could be. You're
Oh,
asked.
yeah, yeah.
I remember, folks. I said I'm very junior at this. I've only like seen the concept.
That's interesting, right? Because you could have a lender and say, okay, well, I'm going to keep this the same. Because also lenders don't want, I don't understand this that well, but there's something to be said about lenders not wanting to, like the reason that they're not defaulting on some of these commercial loans is because they haven't realized the losses until the loan is paid back in full. So is it potential to say that that could happen in the single family space where these lenders don't want to close out that loan because then they're going to have to realize a loss, because current rate is 5 or 6% and they've lent it at 3.5% or however that works, right? So that would be more beneficial for them to leave that loan in place for their own profitability and net worth.
Well, and let's also think about the fact, like what we just talked about. People aren't buying. If
Yeah,
lenders aren't lending, they're not transacting. And
and they're not making money.
how do
Yeah,
lenders make money? They transact, right?
yeah,
It's not just on the interest they charge for loans, but it's those closing fees. It's those
right.
percentage points, right? And they need to be transacting. Um, so if the markets are frozen, and nobody's buying, then nobody's originating loans, and that's a problem, right? So
Yeah.
you got to open up the markets in some way, shape, or form.
hmm
Um,
I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see like what happens. I mean, because obviously we don't know, and it doesn't seem like they know. I mean, unless they know something that we don't know, which is entirely possible. But I've never been through anything like this before, so who knows what's
yeah,
going to happen.
because guys, like in full disclosure, I this house I'm sitting in, I live in a house. I got 2.85% on my mortgage. I'm probably not going anywhere until I can pay cash for something, right?
Yeah,
Because I mean, 2.85% is about as good as it gets.
yeah.
And I'm certainly not moving somewhere and taking on double the mortgage for, you know, 3 times, 2.5 times the interest rate. Not doing that. So, there's a lot of people in the same boat I am, you know. And till you solve that problem, you're not opening things up for sure. And
Yeah. I don't
I
know.
because I will tell you guys, like like Wilmington, there's things in my neighborhood that have gone up for sale and they've sold quickly. They're not sitting on the market, but the people that are buying, they're buying with cash.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so who on this call right now has 800, 900, $1 million to pay cash for their home, right? Not a lot of people.
Not a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah,
But some people. It's
some.
interesting, I thought it was funny when we were down in, Miami, and we were at the IMED conference, and one of the guys there was talking about the houses on a certain street or strip or whatever in South Florida. He was like, "The houses are going for, like, $30 million there, and people pay cash for them." I was like, "Holy smokes." There's different levels to this.
Yeah, but have you ever seen what makes up the 1%, right?
Mhm.
Like it's not as high as you think, but you're still talking 1%,
Yeah,
right? So I think getting into the 1% or even the 1.5%, it doesn't take as much money as you think, but it's
yeah,
still 1 to 1.5%. So that should tell you how many people have 500 grand, 600 grand sitting around to just go pay cash for their house. It's not enough to open up the markets. That's for sure.
right, right. Yeah, Mike McCoy has a good comment here. Says sellers are on the sideline with rates like Tim. Buyers are sitting on their hands with rates above 7. It's a sticky situation where something has to give at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you.
And that's what we're sitting here trying to speculate. What's going to give and how is it going to get there? Is it going to be continually increasing the rates where there just comes a point of unaffordability? So prices come down, from some way. I don't know. Or who knows? I really don't know.
Yeah, so guys, if you would have asked me, and people did, November, December, January, where we were going to end up this year, I thought we'd end up in the high fives. Um, I still
Yeah,
think
that's right. You were pretty adamant about that. You were like high fives, low sixes.
I still think I still think rates are gonna come down from where they are now by the end of the year, but I think we're gonna end up in the mid sixes. Um,
I mean, because historically, the longest running period of time rates were what, between 5.5 and 6. Five.
no, I think if you go back and look from like the early '70s to like 1990 something, um, rates didn't come down, and
Mm.
they were at I forgot the number, but they were really high. Because I forgot what the stat is. It was like, guys, don't quote me on this. I'm paraphrasing, so I don't remember the exact year, but it was like if you would have in 1972 or something like that, if you would have waited for rates to come down before you bought a house, you would not have bought a house until like 1991 or something like that. It's that kind of span.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So, again, we looking at that now? God, I hope not. Um, so, which is why another reason why I say, yeah, which is another reason why Cedric, what do you say? You think we're going to end up at 7.5, or that's where we are? Um, but that's another reason why I say they're at 7 something now. It's really not that high. So,
Yeah.
if you find something that's working at that rate, go close it up, put it on stabilized debt. Don't
Yeah, I know
float
that
it.
we were talking a lot about residential stuff, but applying it to commercial real estate, I was like, yeah, if the numbers work at your no at that interest rate, like you just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, some of the little funky sayings still apply, right? Like date the rate,
Yeah.
right?
It's
Date the
funny.
rate, marry
I
the
felt
asset.
a little remorse because we refinanced a property recently and the bridge loan rate was 5.75. And I was like, oh, remember those days when bridge was under 6% interest?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah, Tim.
mm,
Well, one of the properties, I won't mention it, guys, but one of the properties Tim and I had under contract like 2 years ago, just 2 years ago, we almost closed on this thing. And I went back and looked at the reef on the average 7.5 historically. Thanks, Cedric. Um, I went back and looked at the underwriting file that we had after we were quoted the debt, and it was bridge debt, and it was like you said, it was like 5.8%,
mm.
on that underwriting file, and that was quoted debt from the lender at that time for bridge.
Oh
Uh,
man,
for
those were the good
bridge,
days.
yeah. So,
Mm.
man,
You think we'll ever see something like that again, Tim?
I don't know. I'm
I don't think
almost
so.
50. I'm almost 50, so I would probably say not in my lifetime. I don't think we'll see bridge rates get. I don't see we're going to see
I
bridge
don't
rates in the
I
five
don't think
again.
we will. I mean, because I think that they see what happened because of the rates going so low, and they see what it did to the market and to inflation and this, that, and the other thing. I don't think we ever see rates that low again, ever again.
No, I definitely don't think I'll ever see rates in the threes or fives or bridges in the fives in my lifetime again.
No, mine either. So.
So
All right, guys. Well, this has been a fun speculation round. Obviously we don't know what's going on, or we don't know what's going to happen, I should say. But we're hopeful things move in our favor, but it's not stopping us from buying property, whether on residential or commercial side. And, just keep doing deals. And if it makes sense, do it. You can always refinance the rate if things go up. You look like a genius because you bought property sooner before the rates continue to go up. But if they come down, you just refinance. Like, it's not even a big deal at all. So, any outro comments here, Tim?
No, just keep doing deals, guys. Like, you're not going to do yourselves any favors by sitting on the sidelines. So get out there, find deals that work, and close on them.
Right. All right, everybody. Peace.
See you guys.